Many teachers across the world don't have opportunities or have very few opportunities to engage in that type of learning. So perhaps we might move now to thinking about how we can organise and deliver professional development opportunities. I'd like to start with Nathan, who's a practicing teacher, and ask him perhaps to describe for us a successful professional development experience that he's had. What characterised it, who delivered it, and what made it successful for you?
Okay. Well, this might surprise many of you, but the most successful professional development I have found as a teacher is my students. I'll give you a clearer definition to what I'm trying to tell you. I believe in action-based research. For instance, if I bring in a new initiative, a new program, a new course, to my students, I will actually watch the impact, the flow that has on my students' learning. Now, by thinking yourself more of as a researcher than a teacher when you're bringing in these new developments, reforms, it's a lot clearer, because you can start seeing any sort of concerns and you can actually see them as not so much obstacles, but ways of challenges. I also believe that students are your best professional development as a teacher, because even though I try to influence and teach my students, they too also influence and teach myself as well.
Thank you. But I think the teacher as a researcher is a theme that we see quite frequently across the globe. And you're talking there about being a very reflective teacher. How do you encourage some of your colleagues to also have that reflective attitude?
Well, how I encourage them is I try to explain to them that you have 30 human beings in front of you. Maybe not consider them, I only see them as students, but as 30 human beings. And with my experiences, I see that with the students, many of them have their own way of doing things, seeing things, and that they can actually bring a lot of insight and a lot of know-how into the actual teaching side of the equation. I try to explain to my colleagues, or almost sell them on the idea, that you will learn so much more about yourself if you work alongside your students a lot more. See yourself as a researcher as well as a teacher. I do have some success in that as well, and many teachers who do try that, i.e. see themselves as a researcher, do come back to me saying it has completely, utterly changed the way that I teach now in a very positive way.
Thank you. Perhaps we move now to a very different part of the globe, to Florence and to your foundation in the Cameroon. Perhaps you could talk to us a little bit about how you conceptualise professional development for your teachers. You've talked about the qualities that you look for when you're recruiting teachers, but how do you ensure that they continue to grow whilst they're working in your foundation?
First of all, I want them to know by themselves, because they have the brains. People have the brains, but they don't know they have the brains. People have the guts, they don't know they have the guts. So I want them to know that development for everyone is a continuous process. Once you know that it's a continuous process, then you grow a critical mind. When you grow a critical mind, then you are open. When you are open, you know that you have to know how to acquire more knowledge. For what, when, how to use it. Then you know that you cannot move alone. You have to talk to your other colleagues. You have to gather to discuss on the subject that you are teaching, to renew the way you teach. You have to build a curriculum together to find out what are the lessons to be learned for your failures and what to improve as experience. You have to know that, you have to develop. It's a natural occurrence. And I don't withhold any teacher who want to try another experience. I even encourage them to have another experience and come back. And then you know that you need peer support. You need to go to seminars to hear other people's experience and learn from it. You don't have to, the sky must be your limit. But when the sky is your limit, then you know you are so tiny, so that you have to really work very hard. We are in countries where people are just blocked. People are told that everything good must come from somewhere else. People must break that down and know that if they work hard and they know how to work together and in groups, then they will develop. Now, if they are going somewhere else, then we are going to recruit new ones, as we are doing now, because we are in a turning point, and they will always be supported by others. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on actually to Alexei, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how you might support that collaboration, that learning from each other in a much bigger system like the one that you're responsible for.
Yeah, thank you. There is a saying that you need the whole village to educate one child. So we can say that we need the society to educate one teacher. And I would like to explain a few words that we need leaders of the culture of the country to address teachers directly. So we need a chance for the major scientists or major entrepreneur or major writer of the country to work directly with teachers. Of course, technologies are important here. Then we need a special infrastructure, I believe, of people who are really dedicated to organizing this work of teachers. And then we need this collaboration. Collaboration without facilitators, mediators, does not work easily. People do not correspond just occasionally. So we need this infrastructure, and we need this way of networking between different educational communities, different schools. And we need parents to support this as well. So I would like to emphasize now the technology I mentioned. I think technology can be used on different levels of development, but technology are developing very, very fast. If you don't have, mobile phones today in this village, perhaps tomorrow they will be there. You can have all these figures in India, for example, and Pakistan, and even Bangladesh of mobile devices. And so networking is really existing today with all these devices. It's very hard to network between villages, and it's very easy to network the whole country if you have the technology there. And one more thing which was discussed in the morning in this session is visibility, transparency. So when a teacher can show what's happening in her classroom, just putting these things in the information space of the whole country, of the whole education community, then it's clear what can I get from another person. So I think the technology is really a key word, and innovation should go to organize this information space for all the learning and teaching community of the country and globally, of course. We have an experience with Global Lab, Global Laboratory, a community of schools in many countries, in 50 countries of the world, when students and teachers put there some joint research and exchange their observations and their data in the visual form. So I think it's a very good example of what we're discussing today.
Thank you. And Larry, perhaps you'd like to add something from some of the projects that you're involved with. How do you ensure that maybe there's collaboration across different projects or between different projects?
Well, sure. I think some of the things that our company has been involved in and that we have found is that if you're going to get the teachers to come to professional development, there's two ways. You either entice them, make it attractive enough to encourage them to come, or they're required by continuing legal education, continuous education projects or requirements. what we found is that you've got to make this, the quality of the teaching has got to be there. So if you have experienced teachers who are going to come, you need to have very experienced teachers who are teaching experts. So you have to go to the best and the brightest opportunities and professionals to entice the educators to actually come. You've got to make sure that they go home with, in a motivated and an invigorated, form. They're taking their time, oftentimes coming, away from the classroom, so they want something in return. And so you want to make sure that they're going back in a way that they're eager to go back to the classroom with the new ideas and the best practices that they've learned. And then you've got to make the whole experience appealing. One of the examples that we use in the United States is a partnership that we have with Phil Mickelson, who's one of the very famous golfers. Phil's an interesting fellow. Even though he's a professional golfer, he will tell you that had he not been able to hit a golf ball straight, he probably would have been a scientist. He has a great passion for astronomy. And if you start talking to him about golf, soon enough you'll start talking about how he uses physics to improve his golf game. We put together 3 academies each summer at the Mickelson ExxonMobil Teaching Academies that are held in Houston, Texas, and in New Orleans and in New Jersey. These teach about 300 teachers at each one of the academies. They're week-long. ExxonMobil pays for the funding to bring the teachers from around the country to come. And during that time period, they are taught by professionals from the National Science Teachers Association, one of the best curriculum designers in the United States. They have an opportunity to interface with their counterparts from all across the country, focused primarily on 3rd through 5th grade in the United States, where of course the basic curriculum, the basic learning for science and math education is going to take place. And of course at the end, Phil comes and shows up, and of course that's an appeal for all of them to actually have a chance to meet a celebrity. We bring teachers in their team teaching groups from various campuses and schools across the country. But one of the academies is also one that you have to apply for, and you have to be selected based on your application. And again, the NSTA picks the individuals to come. Again, about 300 people are chosen, and we usually have as many as 1,500 applications. So it's obviously attractive. People want to come, and the feedback we get is just excellent.
Great. That sounds very exciting, but I think you mentioned in that actually you were paying for the teachers to be able to be there, paying their expenses. In many school systems in the world, there isn't sufficient finance to be able to do that, unfortunately. So I wonder if we could just kind of continue that theme of how do we motivate teachers who might, as you say, be giving up their own time to participate in opportunities for development, to collaborate with other teachers